My kale is finally ready to collect seeds, and I thought I would show you how we did it. First, I cut off all of the stalks, and I didn't worry if there were still some green seed pods on there, because I felt like if I waited for everything to turn brown and dry, that probably some of the pods would open and drop a lot of seed, and I didn't want to let them do that. So I waited until, I would say probably more than half of the pods were brown and dry and crispy. And then I took the branches like this, and I have this plastic tub, and literally just shook them like this. And so the brown, dry, crispy ones open up and drop the seeds. And then you also get a ton of the little papery seed pods. So we've already separated out some of that. And then I would come back with my hands and just kind of rub, if there were still some dry seed pods that hadn't burst open yet, I would rub those and release the seeds. So now I've finished winnowing basically all of this seed into my tub, and then we made a pile of these leftover parts, and I might actually even use them as mulch in the garden, although I'm sure there's still seed in there, and I might get kale popping up where I don't want it, or I might just put it in the compost. And then here's what's left over. I had been cutting off the branches from these big stalks so that I could shake them out over the tub. So you can see this is a ton of kale seed. I mean, this is honestly probably enough kale seed to last me an entire lifetime. I don't know if it would stay viable that long, but now I have some kale seed to share. I wanted to show you after I have shaken out the stems with the dry seed pods in my tub here. Then what happens is you basically have a layer on the bottom of seeds, and then you have all of this chaff on top, but there are still some seeds mixed in with that. So what I did is I used this colander, and I just scooped up handfuls of chaff, put it in the colander, and kind of swirled it around until I was pretty sure that most of the seeds had fallen down through the holes, and then I separated out the chaff that way. You can also do that somewhat with your hands. You can use your hands like a sieve, like take your two hands and scoop up some of that chaff and kind of toss it up a little bit. It helps if there's a breeze, or you can blow on it, and you just want to let the seed fall down and let the chaff either blow away, or if you want to collect the chaff somehow. So I'm not sure if this process is worth it or not. I kind of wanted to experiment and see what would happen. So with kale, this is my kale that grew last year, and then I let it overwinter, and then we still had wonderful kale to eat in early spring. And then I've just been letting it flower and go to seed and waiting to collect the seed. A couple of things that I didn't realize and I wasn't expecting, and this is why I wanted to go through this whole cycle of plant to seed to plant, is that when the plants go to seed, they get huge. Like, I'm talking beast plants right in the middle of my raised beds. So I think if I were going to collect seeds again, I might try to plan a little better, and maybe even have a section where I plant a few things that I plan to allow to go to seed, and that way when they get huge, it doesn't bother me because it's not right in the middle of my garden. That was one thing. Another thing is that it took a long time, and so these big plants that I was waiting for them to dry up and so I could harvest the seeds, they were taking up growing space in my garden. You know, I could have been planting other things in that space this year and we could be eating those things right now. So that's another factor. And also, it's really easy to order packets of seeds, and seeds are not expensive, like $3 approximately for a packet of, you know, plenty of kale seed. So I feel like the amount of time that it took me and the growing space that it took up and the just kind of unsightly nature of the plant as I was waiting for it to be ready for me to harvest the seeds, that all kind of leads me to feel like I probably won't collect seed very often. Now I have enough kale seeds to last me, you know, for a long time, so I won't need to collect kale seed. But I'm also experimenting with this with several other plants in my garden, chard and beets and carrots, and same thing is true for all of them. They get huge and they take up that growing space, and it just takes a long time for them to finish that cycle to where the seeds are ready for harvesting. These are carrots that I've allowed to go to seed, and you can see that they resemble Queen Anne's lace because of course they are related to Queen Anne's lace. Queen Anne's lace is wild carrot, but you can see how huge they are, plus the fact that they're in my raised beds, which just elevates them even further, and they just kind of are looming over the whole garden. And then over here is Swiss chard that I allowed to go to seed. I finally tied it up because it was sprawling over the edge of the bed and actually blocking this path. So I had to support it because it doesn't seem even close to being ready for seed harvesting. And this is a beet. You can actually see the beet down in there. It's huge, it's massive, because again, these are my beets from last year. And then, you know, we ate the greens last year all summer, and now this year I've allowed it to go to seed, and it just produces this huge monster of a plant. And I tied this up also to a stake because I literally could not walk through this walkway. I think I'm still gonna tie up these carrots a little bit because they also are in the way. But they're pretty, aren't they? And if I had put them in a specific place in the ground somewhere, it would be really pretty somewhere where I didn't have to worry about it. There's also the element of those windows right there. Our dining room is in there, and so this is our view, which we love. We look out here at every meal, but now I have these monster plants here, and it kind of irritates me a little bit to see them. But they're beautiful in their own wild way, and again, I'm glad to have gone through the experience and watched this cycle, and it will be fun to use these seeds next year and probably for years to come. So it's definitely been interesting. Like, I'm glad I've done it to see that cycle come full circle. But again, I'm not sure that I would do this every year. And again, I think I would plan a little more specifically if I was hoping to collect seeds. So I hope that's helpful for you in your garden. It's an experience I think every gardener should try at least once so you can have that full cycle experience. And it's fun to say, like, it'll be fun for me that I don't have to order kale seed, at least for the next few years. And it's fun to know, just like it's so satisfying and rewarding to sit down to eat the food that you have grown, it's fun to plant your own seed in your garden and to know, like, I produced this seed. You know, that's a cool aspect of it. So I think everyone should try it at least once in your garden. But as far as like the time and the cost effectiveness of it, I'm not sure that it's worth it. Another thing to consider is that if there ever was a situation or a day and age when we couldn't get seeds, that was kind of maybe subconsciously a little bit of my reasoning this year in collecting seeds. It's been a strange year, 2020, and some people really couldn't get seeds, and a lot of places were sold out of some seeds. So I wanted to know, like, if I needed to produce my own seeds, how does that work, and could I do it? And the answer is yes.